Well, without much success, journalists now calling on U.S. Capitol Police to turn over hours of video evidence recorded during the January 6th Capitol riots.
Let's bring our panelists back in. Our Monday regulars, Joe DeGenevieve, Victoria Tenzing. Joe, why is there this refusal to hand over the footage?
Because on January 6th at the Capitol, there was a catastrophic security failure by the Capitol Police and the leadership of the House and the Senate. And they are doing everything they can to cover up what went wrong that day by way of the conduct of the U.S. Capitol Police. We already know that the only person killed on Capitol Hill that day was Ashley Babbitt, a Trump supporter and a Marine, killed by a Capitol Police officer who, in my opinion, used unjustified deadly force in a situation where it was completely unjustified. So the bottom line is very simple. They are trying to hide as much information as possible about this because they are not subject to the Freedom of Information Act of the federal government.
Victoria, what information do you think one might be able to take away if you were to gain access to this footage?
Well, you're going to find out about the lack of training. I mean, just watching how the police operated. Joe and I were doing Sebastian Gorka's podcast, just happened to be during this whole time. And
on January 6th.
On January 6th. And we watched it live and we're commenting on it. And I'm also a former federal prosecutor and former Justice Department official. We know law enforcement. And our reaction was, this is a security failure. This should never have been allowed. You know, there's 2,000 Capitol Police for 535 members of Congress. The city of Atlanta has 6 million people and they have under 2,000 police. It is a disgrace, the lack of training. And after 9/11, don't you think they should have known how to keep away an insurgent crowd?
This was a political decision made by the leaders in the House and Senate, by the Democratic leaders. That's why they didn't call in the military, because they had gone ballistic. Remember when Trump used the military to help and assist in providing security for clearing Lafayette Square? They decided that they weren't going to use enough force to resist. And I think the Democratic leaders were complicit in this because of their incompetence. I think the Capitol Police were totally unprepared and improperly trained to deal with this.
Victoria, what do you think members of the January 6th Commission in Congress might be looking to find? What do you think they could discover?
Well, that commission hasn't been named yet, but I have somebody that may be on it, so it'll be very interesting. They are going to be looking at the lack of training. Why weren't there barriers? Boy, they sure knew how to get out the fences after the riot and blame it all on Trump. Why wasn't there any preparation for an incident like this?
Yeah.
And that's what they're going to be looking at if the Democrats allow the Republicans to do so.
Well, that question absolutely remains. Our Monday regulars, Joe DeGenevieve, Victoria Tenzing, answering our questions today. Thank you both. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Show us no attacking, no assault, remain calm.
We're not going to assault. We're going to be heard. Everybody, this must be peaceful.
This has to be peaceful. We have the right to peacefully assemble.
And have you seen this video yet? Apparently some coordination between the Capitol Hill police and the rioters on January 6th. This newly released video, again, comes to us from RMG News. They shared it with the website American Greatness, and you can see what happens here. The question this afternoon is, why don't we have the rest of the video or all the surveillance video? Let's talk about these two issues now and welcome in retired Navy SEAL and former FBI agent Jonathan Gillum. He's also the author of the Sheep No More series, available now. Highly recommended. John, great to see you again.
Good to be with you, my friend.
Couple interesting updates here. First, let's talk about that video. I mean, you know, you have uniformed Capitol police officers apparently coordinating there with the Q shaman of all people, as he was known. This looks like a negotiation. How do you think this affects the overall case of these guys?
I would even go as far as say it's not really a negotiation. That looks more like instruction by law enforcement telling them if they remain calm and peaceful, then they're going to be fine. And that's different. than what has been portrayed by media and the visuals that's been given out by media, and then how the Department of Justice has looked at this as insurrection. And I think, I'm not sure how this is going to play out for these individuals, because when you look at this video right here, I think it shows proof of the intention was a protest to go in and show that their presence was there and that they're not happy with the way government was being ran. And that's their right to do that. I don't know if it was their right to push that far into the Capitol building, but it's completely different than insurrection, which the shaman there, for instance, has been held in prison for a long period of time. I actually don't know. It's completely disappeared off the radar, so I don't even know what's going on with him right now. So when we look at these things, John, let me say this. When we look at this in comparison with the other story that we're going to talk about, what we see is people classifying things based on their own ideological belief, or they will just randomly label something versus what it actually, the law that it actually falls under.
Well, I want to go back to the Capitol breach as well and talk a little bit more about that. We're also learning this afternoon that the first active duty service member has now been charged in the Capitol breach. 40-year-old Major Christopher Warnegris, I think is his name, is stationed in Virginia. He was at the time of the arrest anyway. He is now accused of pushing and resisting Capitol Police to help other rioters get into the Capitol. But, John, this database of all these arrests is searchable online. The DOJ has put it up online. So far, 440 people, more than that, have actually been charged related to the Capitol breach. None of them, though, charged with insurrection or sedition.
Right, and I don't disagree with some of these charges that are going on. I think the whole thing was stupid to begin with.
And a lot of it was unlawful, I mean, trespassing, things like that.
Sure.
But to your point, when you look at this database here, this does not read like they're actually going after insurrection, but so many people still consider this insurrection.
Right. If it was insurrection, I mean, blatant insurrection, they put those people's names up because they were a direct threat to the United States. I could understand that.
Right.
That's a technique that you would use. But these are people who are being charged with trespassing. So you're going to put a database with all these people up there, exposing them for trespassing. And what that's doing is it's notifying all the activists on the left on who to target. And it's mind-boggling to me. Some of these things that are occurring make about as much sense as Fast and Furious, where they sent guns over down to Mexico, which I could never have gotten a warrant for that when I was in the FBI. I don't know how those things happen. I don't understand how these things are occurring, with the exception, when we look at the totality of circumstances, that the left is in control, and they do things like this whenever it benefits them and exposes people on the right who may be active in trying to stand against the government.
Yeah, I mean, some of the charges are serious, and John, I know you looked at this. Some of these charges do appear warranted, but again, a lot of questions about how the FBI and DOJ are going about this. John, great to see you as always. Thanks so much.
So, the big protest/riot at Capitol Hill on January 6th of this year. Yeah, it was bad. Some people broke the law, but if you notice that the left and the media, they're acting like this is Pearl Harbor and September 11th all wrapped up into one. Some of the rhetoric has been totally over the top, and we're uncovering new evidence all the time that shows that some of the key people that we've been hearing most about did nothing wrong, or at least they didn't break anything or hurt anybody. Take a look at this.
Like our First Amendment allows, gather more Americans under the condition that they will come and gather peacefully to discuss what needs to be done to save our country. We're going to be heard. Everybody, this must be peaceful.
This has to be peaceful. We have the right to peacefully assemble.
Now there's the horns guy, possibly the most recognized figure in all of this. His real name is Jacob Chansley, and I'm joined now by his attorney. Albert Watkins has been representing Jacob Chansley. And also we have with us Julie Kelly, senior contributor for The American Greatness, a conservative online news publication. Welcome to you both. And first, Mr. Watkins, attorney for Jacob Chansley. Again, sir, welcome. And your client is still in custody, and that just does not seem right. It has been so many months. What's going on here?
Yeah, we have a situation in America today where we are emulating gulags from the Soviet Union. The days of the Soviet Union have passed, but not in our country. My client did nothing violent. He stole nothing. He was not assaultive. He was not threatening. He was peaceful. He was supportive of law enforcement. And in fact, we unearthed video footage of a high-ranking Capitol Police officer giving permission to my client to enter the Capitol, provided he was peaceful. This is now the 130th day my client sits in solitary confinement. He had no weapon. He made no threats. He was not violent. He did not steal. He called for peace. He helped police thwart a theft in the Capitol. He is not a violent man. And here we are in this great country dealing with and addressing the reality that we are putting people like Mr. Chansley, who are not violent, were not violent, with a zero criminal history, in jail, in solitary confinement for 130 days, while the government makes misleading statements, misrepresentations, and now we've come to find out out-and-out lies about my client not having permission to walk in the Capitol.
Yeah.
We have to provide the video to the government.
Look, we've seen the video. I've seen cops allowing people into the Capitol. I saw that little smaller officer removing the French barricades. I've seen it. I'm just like, why can't you get a judge to see all this stuff? Because I agree with you. It's totally outrageous. It's very Soviet-esque. What's going on? How can you fix this?
Well, it's really scary. That government that's our government, has the duty and the responsibility to disclose this video to every criminally accused. We gave it to the government. They have not given it out to the other defendants' counsel. We had to make sure it went public. And this is not just an image of police moving barricades. This is a high-ranking Capitol Police officer stating from his own mouth that, yes, you may come in if you're peaceful.
So your client, I've seen all kinds of footage. Hey, let's face it, he did some things he shouldn't have done that day. He did apologize. I want to put that apology up. I think we have it. Jacob Chansley's apology. He's made it clear that he regrets what he did. Can we put it up on the screen if we have it? If not, that's okay. Here we go. I deeply regret and am very sorry I entered the Capitol building on January 6, 2021. I should not have been there, period. I am sorry for having aroused fear in the hearts of others. That was wrong, period. Okay, he's showing contrition. All right, finally, what's next? How do you finish this? I mean, this is crazy.
Yeah, what's going to happen here is we have to be very cognizant of the reality that these people need compassion. We need to now face up to the reality that the government is not being forthcoming and transparent and candid. And every single defendant and every single defendant's counsel has to scream from the highest mountain that we are not a gulag. We are not a nation state that allows for this type of treatment of non-violent offenders.
Right.
Period. Ever.
Finally, sir, I have heard some attorneys make noise about, well, President Trump is responsible for some of the things that he said in the run-up to January 6th. I personally do not accept that, and I point to January 6th, where he specifically said march peacefully and patriotically. Are you using President Trump as part of your defense?
No, but I have to be candid with you. My client, who loved and adored Trump, still loves and adores Trump, but he's really disappointed. He's disappointed because he feels like he has been left behind, but he understands. And he's not backing down on his belief that Trump had great things in plan for this country. But whether he was pro-Trump or anti-Trump, we're talking about America with a gulag, with people being held in solitary confinement because they didn't think what other people wanted them.
It's totally unacceptable, sir. Good luck. Send your client my best wishes. Yes, I am sending him my best wishes. I think he should not have acted that way. However, he apologized, and I didn't see him break anything or hurt anybody. And this is way too much. Thank you, Mr. Watkins. I'd like to bring in Julie. You bet. Julie Kelly now, senior contributor for the American Greatness, the conservative online news publication. Julie, this should not be happening in America.
It absolutely should not be. There are a lot of people like Mr. Chansley and other protesters who are caught up not only in the moment, but as you saw in that video, we actually published it on American Greatness, that they felt like they were entitled and allowed to be there. So my question is, since Mr. Chansley and so many protesters face trespassing and disorderly conduct charges after the fact, why didn't police officers immediately arrest them while they were there? Why did they allow them to enter the building, go into the Senate chambers, be outside, go through the building? And now the FBI is on a nationwide manhunt trying to track down people who thought that they were there lawfully. And so this is a real problem.
And now the FBI has made it such a priority on every field office's website and Twitter address. You have these suspects, the FBI's most wanted. I mean, it's very, very dramatic. And it seems to be, and if you go through their social media publications, this is their top priority, finding anybody who was there on that day. And of course, you know that the Brian Sicknick story was essentially a lie. He was not killed by being hit in the head with a fire extinguisher. He was, well, he died of natural causes.
That's right. And the FBI, I think it's just embarrassing. And what a message to our enemies, both here and abroad, that our FBI is so fixated on tracking down, target grandmas who and plastering their face on their social media account. You talked about Brian Sicknick, a huge lie fabricated, not just by the U.S. Capitol Police, but also by the New York Times. The two men charged with spraying him with pepper spray, not bear spray, as we were originally told, those two men were arrested in March. They remain behind bars, denied bail. I listened into a court hearing last week where a Reagan-appointed judge refused to let either man leave pending trial, including one man whose family put up a $15 million bond package. Now, there's no evidence that that spray even hit Officer Sicknick. It certainly had nothing to do with his untimely, tragic death at the age of 42. But what we have now, Greg, as you know, are political prisoners being held hostage by their own government and by Joe Biden's Justice Department.
We referred to this earlier, and I want to just make sure everybody sees it again. They need to be reminded what President Trump said on January 6th to the peacefully assembled people in front of him when he addressed the crowd.
I know that everyone here will soon be marching over to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard.
Peacefully and patriotically, clear as day. So what do you think is going to happen? I mean, the media are not even curious about this anymore. They seem to want to believe the worst about these people, or they just don't care.
Well, I think that the narrative was orchestrated very early, actually, that day, that this was an armed insurrection. That's another thing that there is no proof of. No one has been arrested with carrying a firearm into the Capitol building that day.
Yeah, no one was armed.
And so
no one was armed, and no one has been charged
Nobody
with.
had a firearm.
And no one has been charged with insurrection, which, by the way, is a chargeable offense. But since no one did it, they can't charge anybody with it. It's really fascinating that this is happening and very sad. We have to leave it there. To be continued for sure. Julie Kelly from the American Greatness, thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Greg.
You bet.
On a personal level, what this year and a half has done to me as an American, what I'm about to say, I could cry saying to you, I have lost faith in every major institution in this country. I think they're all lying to me every day, all the time. The FBI, the CIA, the CDC, the NIH, you name it, they lie. I've already known this about the media. But I actually thought that the FBI and the CIA were honorable institutions. I thought that the top military brass really cared about the defense of the country and not about being woke. But a sort of sheet has been removed.